Hello, my name is Evie and welcome to Overwatch Everyday Theory Thursday. I hope to make this a weekly addition to the ranked lessons on my channel where I go into a bit more depth of the smaller but important aspects of performing well in Overwatch that high ranked players, myself included, might do instinctually and forget to talk about. If you have any topic suggestions or things that you see me do in the ranked lessons videos that you would like some elaboration on, please drop a comment below. Overwatch is a micro-based game, where mechanics carry you far, but strategy is what makes consistency. Building your understanding of the game will help you form ideas that will let you win without needing to hit insane shots. But there are many players who study the game, pro VODs, theories, and get regular coaching, but they still struggle to find the best plays in-game. Some of the most knowledgeable coaches in the game will still end up in ranks like Diamond or Platinum, and understanding the game is useless if you don't know how to implement it properly. So, strategy is a needed tool to accomplish most goals in your life, and the backbone of strategy is information. Gathering information efficiently is a very strong skill that will be needed in some form to progress yourself as a player in this game. In this video, I'm going to delve into the informational value of a universal mechanic in the game, the scoreboard. Since I play on keyboard and mouse, I'll be referring to the scoreboard as tab for most of this video, but I do refer to just like the scoreboard for any of my console viewers. I hope that you'll be able to walk away from this video understanding when to use tab, what kind of information that it can provide for you, and how to implement it into your games. Okay, getting right into it, I want to just talk over the use cases for tab and the kinds of information that you're regularly going to be looking for whenever you pull up the scoreboard. So, some of the main things that you're going to be looking for and can provide you with information to win or form your plans to win are going to be the ultimates, where you're going to be able to see your team's ultimates as well as get good guesses for what the enemy team has. Respawns and respawn timers, so knowing who's actually available in the fight and when they might be coming back. Heroes and swaps, so knowing what heroes the enemy team is on, what heroes your team is on without having to exactly locate each member. And seeing if any of the enemy teams have swapped regularly throughout the game is going to be very useful. Diagnosing potential issues where you're able to see maybe some high deaths on your team or heavy damage from the enemy team, and you're able to use that to formulate plans later. Self-checks and glaze to make sure that you're performing and putting in the numbers that you would really want to be putting in based off of your ideas, and if the actual gameplay is lining up with that. And just general checks and visual reminders for some things that you might forget over the course of the game, because Overwatch is a super complicated game. So going into that first category of ultimates here for a moment. Ultimates are going to be one of the very big and important factors of Overwatch. Understanding what ultimates are on the field will enable you to plan your plays very deliberately in a way that you would not be able to, or might be a little bit more risky if you didn't know what you were playing into and what resources you actually had. So, for example, you can be thinking that if your Winston is going in, and ends up very, very low, falling critical HP, but you're on Kiriko, if you recognize and you hit tab before that fight and you saw that your Winston has primal rage, you can be a lot less incentivized to TP Suzu trying to save your Winston who's in the middle of the enemy team, because you know that they might just pop their primal and they're going to be looking for a big play with that. Understanding what your team is likely to be looking to do or play for is going to be really important, especially if you're going to be kind of like me, where you don't join team chat and don't like commenting that much. It can be a super useful thing to guess plays like that, as well as understand what the enemy team might want to do. If you know that they have Nano Blade and your team doesn't have anything to respond to it, you have a much higher success rate of actually trying to clutch up a fight or win something if you know that your standing main and trying to shoot out their Genji is going to be somewhat futile, because it's a very high chance that they might just get nanoed soon. They might just use Nano Blade and then blow up your team, where if you recognize that the enemy team has those ultimates because their Genji's damage numbers were high and their Ana's healing numbers were high, and you got a good guess that they were going to do that, then you might be able to strategize and say, okay, what if I try to path in a way that's not directly through main, that's not exactly stacking with my team, but I can try to find a frag onto their Ana before they get their Nano Blade off, which will allow our team to not have to play into that deadly combo. Understanding that they might have their ultimates online or that your team has ultimates online is a very important factor in understanding what kind of plays you would want to go for. So using your tab or your scoreboard to identify those plays and get the information that you would need to know when to go for those risky plays is going to be a super important thing. Also knowing when your team will need a little bit less care for themselves, or when you will be able to stack. Even if they have their nanoblade on, if they have their nanoblade ready to try to blow up your team as you walk, if your Reinhardt has Earth Shatter and is stacking and you are going to be playing in a closed space, there's a very high chance that maybe you would be able to use that Earth Shatter to stop the nanoblade. Just to sort of throw it out there, a theory or like a idea, just kind of as an example of recognizing, hey, if we have something to be able to deal with a play they might make, maybe I don't need to get too crazy. Maybe I don't need to get super wild and look for some sort of miracle kill onto their Ana. Just understanding and having those sort of information like looks to formulate your strategies and your plans a little bit more deliberately is going to increase your win rates so much. But you'll never be able to really do that if you don't find the information first, which you just need to find in some way, usually through tab when it comes to ultimates. So going into our next category here, respawns. Respawn timers are a very important thing to actually keep an eye on throughout the game for your team and the enemy team, because if you are trying to push up, if you're trying to extend off of some kills that you maybe got early into the fight, and you want to be stepping towards their spawn a little bit more, you need to be very keen and very aware that they might be respawning soon. And if you think you're fighting a 1v1 or a 2v1 or like a 2v1 or whatnot, with their respawns coming back, you're not going to be in a very happy state if it suddenly turns into like an entire team fight, but you use all of your cooldowns to try to chase down kills. Understanding when the enemy team is going to respawn is going to be a very important thing, but you can also manage your aggression and the plays that you go for by knowing when your team is coming back and where they might be. So if you see that your tank dies early and you're on like DPS or a Tracer or a Genji, then you can understand and recognize that if you go for a big play into their backline trying to find a kill onto their squishies, it's very likely, since your tank is dead or maybe just respawned and still might be walking out of the spawn room, that you will take a lot of the attention. The enemy team will not be pressured by your tank who just respawned or is in the spawn room because they're not there. So the enemy team is much more likely to turn around onto you and try to blow you up, or you would be put at a disadvantaged state. Where if you use the information of the respawn timers, knowing where your team might be, or who is down on your team, you would be able to make better judgments on the plays that you can do. This also goes for team fights. If you ever find a little opportunity to hit tab and recognize, just as a reminder, of who's in the fight, who's out of the fight, because sometimes the kill feed does disappear, and you will, as fights go super long and end up very scrappy, some people will die on your team, some will respawn, some will come back into the fight. Using the tab to see exactly who is in the fight without having to look around quickly is going to be a very valuable thing, especially in these clutch moments, which maybe you'll want to use your ultimate, but you need to know if you have teammates to support you, if you have teammates to follow up on a big ult that you might want to do, and how many of the enemy players are around to maybe sort of negate that. Understanding who's respawning and who's dead is going to be a very important thing to keep up with, especially as like really long fights turn more and more scrappy. Knowing exactly who is around, who can deal with you, and what plays you can go for is essential, and tab is going to be an amazing tool to help you determine what kind of plays that you can be going for. Understanding what respawn timers mean for your capabilities as a playmaker is going to be very important. It's not even necessarily a playmaker. If your tank dies when you're playing support, then maybe you can be looking to play a lot safer. You can be looking to back up, knowing that you might not have someone to buffer you, Or you can start walking up a little bit more early or aggressively if you see that your tanks just respawn and they just swap to Wrecking Ball or something, or Rinston, something that's going to come back a lot faster when they might have been on Ramatra. You might be able to take space a little bit earlier, which will entice the enemy to step up into your tank's dive range, into your more mobile tank who's just coming back. But if you're not hitting tab, if you're not keeping tabs on what's going on in the spawn room, you might not be able to recognize that play. So going into our next use case for tab is going to be heroes and swaps. This is going to be the main use case in which I am hitting tab very frequently, of understanding and consistently sort of reminding myself of what heroes they're on and what that means for the plays that I can really make. So almost every time, I'm gonna go into it a bit later, but in the pre-fight of a team fight, I'll be hitting tab, I'll be remembering sort of, or seeing what comp they're on, where they might be, or what positions on the map they might be strong with, as well as if they made any swaps from the previous fight. So let's say King's Row first point and I'm attacking. If they have something like a Pharah and a like Sojourn, I'm a little bit more enticed, if I was playing like a flex DPS or a tank or something, to walk through the left side hotel, where, because they're not going to have many good heroes, or much of their damage dealers won't be wanting to put themselves in positions to really spam out that space. Understanding what heroes they're on can allow you to formulate what pathing is going to work for you, what your hero might be best at, as well as your overall general team's win conditions. If you see that they have a bunch of damage, where they're going to be having like a Hanzo and an Emre with like a Domina, Baptiste, Zenyatta, where they're going to have a bunch of long range spam, a ton of damage, you can recognize that and be able to formulate the strategy through tab without even having to peek anyone, without having to see the Hanzo who could potentially one-shot you. You could hold your tab button, you can see exactly what comps are on, and then you would be able to understand or formulate the plan of, okay, well, if they want to shoot me from a distance, maybe I can be playing to try to get on top of them. Maybe I can be thinking of ways to try and blow them up through like pathing in closed space where they wouldn't want to step into. Understanding what heroes your team is on and the enemy is going to help you a bunch. This also goes for your team, where if you know you have very little damage on the front line, if you have something like a Genji, Tracer, Winston, if you're a support player, you need to be recognizing that you might have to be a little bit more careful of their tank, of their frontliners, because your team doesn't have much raw numbers and much damage to actually force out something like a Reinhardt. It's going to be a little bit scarier for you, in that sort of frontliner or big numbers tank is going to be a little bit harder for your team to deal with, and much more likely to be able to sort of walk you down for free or get onto you for free, while your team is playing more for map space to try to find angles around that Reinhardt. But before they do that, before they're able to get their value, it's going to be very scary for you as support. So you can have that idea, you can understand what your team might want to be playing for, and think to yourself that you might want to position a little bit further back. You might want to make it harder for their Reinhardt to get onto you. You might, because nobody on your team can really stop that big trade. Your Winston doesn't want to swing into the Reinhardt hammer, neither does your Genji or your Tracer. So understanding that, you might want to be playing a little bit safer. Understanding what your team might want to do, very important, might want to do, since you need to be actively understanding what's happening in the game and not just how things should be happening. But it can give you a good baseline to start your planning with, to start your thought process for each fight with. Understanding what your comp might want to do, as well as their comp and their heroes, is going to allow you to really position yourself well, go for your own plays better, and just formulate your strategies overall easier and more consistently. Going into our next category or use cases for tab, diagnosing potential issues. Now this one is a little bit more loaded of an idea, where you will be able to see the stats of your team. You'll be able to see the kills, the assists, the deaths, the damage numbers, the mitigated, and the healing for your team and the enemy team. This is going to be a very easy trap to fall into, and makes it very easy to put blame onto teammates or people, when ultimately Overwatch is a game about finding your value. You need to be outperforming your general lobby. You need to be finding ways to win despite whatever's going on. So instead of using the information to sort of go after people or put blame or to say the game's out of your hands, you can be utilizing it to start your process of solving the problems that are happening. There are going to be some instances where you see that they're doing just so much more damage than us, but your hero, if you were on like an Emre or a Bastion or something, but you can see the game just felt really bad and you couldn't really like play that much, and it felt like every time that you peeked you would just get spammed down, or you would just instantly take so much damage you have to kite back to cover and you couldn't shoot your gun whatsoever. If you see that they have a ton of damage, then maybe you can be thinking, since their team is speccing into damage and I'm not winning when I'm doing the same thing, maybe I can be looking to try to find a different form of value. Maybe instead of playing for a raw numbers trade through like my Bastion or my Emre trying to just shoot them, what if I go Tracer or Genji or Sojourn and try to play a little bit more for map space, try to find a little bit more value in angles, which will split their attention, which will split their actual numbers across different points of the map, as they will have multiple people to shoot at if we're not all stacked. That's going to be one of the ideas that can form from diagnosing potential issues that you might be running into based off the numbers that you see in tab. I'm going to go into it a bit later, or a bit more detail of what are easy traps to fall into and how sometimes it's not exactly direct, but it can be one of the very, very, very good use cases for the scoreboard. And going on to our next one, using the scoreboard to self-check yourself and understand what you're actually performing in the game. It can be a very useful thing to know what adjustments you need to make to find a bunch of value. Like we were talking about in the last use case, where if you are playing a hero that most of the value of their kit comes from just doing damage, where you want to shoot your gun and you want to be doing as much damage as you can into the enemy team, and you hit tab and you see, hey, I'm not actually doing all that much damage. I'm not actually able to pump in the numbers that I really want to like pump in here. I can't play for the value that I'm actually wanting to get. It's going to allow you to have a reliable or a tangible source to base ideas off of your adaptation, or base adaptations off of that initial idea or that number. Knowing that you're not doing enough damage, you can either think, okay, so how do I do more damage? Or maybe have the idea of maybe I need to play for something else. Maybe I need to be trying to take a little bit more attention. Stats are not the end all be all. Do not get me wrong. Stats do not mean everything, and there's value that are not reflected in the raw numbers, but numbers are a core part of Overwatch. Eventually you're going to need to shoot your gun. If there are two people contesting the point, you got to get them off, or you got to get the other guy off at some point. And the best way to do that is just through shooting your gun, through doing damage. So understanding that can be a very useful identifier of what you might need to change, or what you might be doing wrong, or maybe what you're doing well. You can just be like, you might have the lowest damage in the lobby, but if you're 20-0 on Widow and the next highest kills in the lobby is like 4, so you're doing something right. You're doing something right. You're finding the frags that you need to find. And if you're winning because of it, then amazing. That's awesome. You can be using it to glaze yourself too. Don't get me wrong. While it can be used to solve your issues in a game, it's good to feel good. It's good to feel good, and it's good to have fun playing the game. Especially, like, one of the greatest joys is seeing an issue that you were having before, making an adaptation in your playstyle a little bit, or playing for slightly different ideas in the game, and then your numbers drastically increase from every point onwards, it feels so good. It's amazing. That's when you glaze yourself. That's when you're like, I'm the fucking GOAT. But going on to our next and last use case, which is going to be a very important and a little bit more of an abstract idea of how to be using tab, is general checks and visual reminders. Overwatch is a super complicated game with a lot of things going on all at once that you are not going to be able to think about all the time. How our brains want to function is being able to sort of do one task at a time, one focus point at a time. And if you are playing for an idea, sometimes there's going to be other important aspects of the game that you need to think about eventually, but it might not be important at this specific moment. If you are trying to Dragon Blade on Genji, you need to make sure that you're hitting your slashes, you're getting onto the right targets and dashing, but you might not be exactly thinking about sort of who is still alive and what ults they might have or what space that they have. But utilizing your tab as a general reminder can be an insanely important tool. There's something I coached a lot of players who had an issue of, after they would be in a huge advantage in a team fight, they would just go straight to the point. They wouldn't think about much, and they just want to shoot whoever's in front of them, but not able to or not identifying exactly who's still alive. After you get some big advantages, or you have some trades between teams, if some people on your team go down, if some people on their team go down, and then you have a little bit of a moment to rest, hitting tab, pulling up, exactly seeing who's alive, or maybe who is still around, what heroes they might have, is a really good reminder of what might actually be coming, what threats you might have to deal with a little bit later. Or if you didn't see their Tracer or their Sombra the entire fight, and you are like in some sort of like advantage state, or your team is respawning, but you didn't see their Sombra or Tracer the entire fight, and your Juno's about to like straight line it out of spawn, maybe, just maybe, it can put the idea into your head that they might want to be looking for a spawn camp onto your Juno, and then which will put your team in a very bad spot. Giving yourself visual reminders whenever you can, just pulling up tab whenever you don't have anything else to really do, whenever you're just trying to find more information, is going to be a really, really, really reliable source to just prompt thoughts, to prompt ideas and understandings of where you might be, or where you might be able to win, where you might lose, and just how you want to be playing the game. It's an amazing tool to just be sort of jump starting your brain in thinking about what can you do? How do you want to play the game? Asking yourself, how do you want to play the game? Because it's giving you visual feedback and reminders of aspects about the game that you might want to formulate your plans around. So regularly checking about who's alive, what heroes are on, threats who might not be like dead yet, ultimates coming back, if they make any like swaps, and just seeing the issues on the game can be reflected in tab, and it's going to be some of the main use cases that you want to be using the scoreboard for during your games to formulate the best strategies that you can. Okay, getting into the times that you want to be using tab, and like sort of positions or spots in your gameplay where you would want to incorporate just checking the scoreboard, getting a little bit more information, is what I want to be focusing on next, or talking about next. So going right into it, one of the best places where you can actually, or should be looking at your tab, is identifying and planning your comp matchup initially as you see it. So as soon as you're able to see the enemy team, you're not fully positioned yet, you're not going into a big fight, but you're seeing and you're scouting the enemy team for the first time, as well as you're seeing your team all at once on the scoreboard. You're able to identify, what does my team comp maybe want to play for, what does their team want to play for, and how can I find my value in that matchup. So before the fight even starts, as the spawn doors are opening, if you're able to see anyone on the enemy team, that is awesome, but there is going to be a little bit of a buffer before you can see the enemy team on or using tab. So sometimes you're going to be able to wait for that and then formulate a plan after you wait for it, and other times you just might want to be taking some open space on the map that you learned through other ways of gathering information, which I'll cover in future videos. But whenever you're able to look at, or you're identifying what their comp wants to do, sort of in like a pre-fight, it will help you a bunch. Whenever you're not exactly fighting, you're not having to control any space, there's not really any threat onto you, using tab in that sort of position is going to be a very, very, very good habit to build. And that leads me into just general pre-fights. This doesn't have to be necessarily at the start of the game, but it's going to be one of the most important to do towards the start of the game, to really recognize what heroes the enemy team is on and how they might want to play. If you notice in a pre-fight or at the very start of the game that they might be, or they're on like a Junkrat or a Sombra or a Genji, something that might want to be flanking a little bit more, might want to play a little bit off their team, you might be a little bit more aware of walking into sort of like small rooms or small corridors away from your team. If you know that they have like a Junkrat, but you don't see them spamming down main, you don't hear them whatsoever, maybe don't walk into the small room with a bunch of corners, because there's a very high chance that they might just be waiting there for somebody to just walk into a trap or walk into that room and look for a one shot. Understanding and getting that information can base your strategies and your awareness so well, and it's one of the best times to do so is pre-fight. Pre-fight or at the very start of the game. And with pre-fight, it also allows you to think about the enemy team's ultimates and just generally everything that we just talked about a little bit ago. Pre-fights and at the very start of the game is going to be one of the most important habits to build, because there's not much else for you to be doing. There's a lot of ways to be gathering information in the pre-fight, but you're going to be in a pretty non-committal position. You're going to be at somewhat like pretty little or low risk from the enemy team, unless they're going like super fast, but I might cover that later too, or a future video. Since you're going to be at such low risk, and since you're not going to be in a position where you actually can get that much visual or audio information, tab is going to be one of the best forms to start formulating your thought process and your plan for the fight. That also goes for when you're respawning. Respawning is going to be a really good time to sort of think about the reflectiveness or the reflective information that tab can provide. Able to see how much damage you're doing, what your deaths are looking like, what the enemy team is sort of like exceeding at or excelling at, how much damage they're doing to you. So if you recognize that you're maybe not winning the raw damage trade, you can start asking yourself why as you're respawning, but you'll have that visual stimuli. You'll be able to see those numbers to prompt that thought, and it's one of the best times to do so is as you're respawning when there's literally nothing else to do. Respawning is going to be a really important time to be utilizing tab, and there's a lot of information that you actually can get while you're respawning. You can be looking at the ultimate charge of the person that you died to. You can be looking, a lot of times I got like a comment or two about it, of how I never watch the death cam, but that's because I usually like to see, if I die early in a fight, I usually like to click out of the death cam and see what's going on in the team fight, while sort of occasionally hitting tab to see who's dead on each side. So I know if I need to like swap to like a faster hero to try to get back into the fight quickly, or if they're building up any big ult charge. If I see a Reinhardt hit a pin onto our tank or onto a squishy, I'm gonna know that they're gonna be a little bit closer to shatter. That'll also be reflected in the numbers, but it's kind of unrealistic for you to keep track of all the numbers per fight, especially as the game goes longer. Ult tracking for the enemy team is not, the first few fights can be determined by numbers pretty frequently, but as the fight goes longer, there are too many factors, and numbers become a more unreliable way, or enemy numbers become a more unreliable way to sort of identify what ults that they might have. Usually you want to be going off like a fight per fight basis, or if you're seeing someone get like super active and aggressive, that's when you want to be thinking, okay, they might be closing their ult. So if their Reinhardt hits a good pin, then they're going to be closer to their shatter than probably previously. So respawning is going to be a very important part, or a very important time to use your tab to try to gather that information and start forming your plans. And the most important part, going into our next and last time to be using tab, and this one's also going to be fairly general, is downtime. And what I mean by downtime is when you cannot be doing much else. So there are going to be times, you'll be able to see it a lot in sort of like ranked lessons, where anytime I'm sort of, if I'm like reloading, or if I need to be like not peeking something, or I'm waiting for my team to sort of walk up, there are going to be a ton of times where I'm just looking around, I'm listening, I'm hitting tab a bunch, trying to find any information that I can to formulate the best plays that I can go for, instead of just like sitting there and waiting for like one trigger to go. I'm trying to get as much information as possible to be able to make the best play that I can. And tab is going to be a very important factor in that. If you know that like some of your team is going to take a little bit longer to respawn and you have a bunch of downtime, then you're going to be able to see that through tab. If you're reloading and you like kite behind a wall, you hit tab for a second, you see, oh shit, my Emre just built like 20 ult charge in the past like 10 seconds. We can go in with our Emre ult now. I can start playing a little bit more aggressively with the idea that we might use our Emre ult. Understanding and just trying to get that information as regularly as you can and incorporating it into moments where you don't have other things to do, when you're reloading, when you're behind a wall, when you're waiting for something, when you're waiting for cooldowns, your team to respawn, your team to come back, the enemy team to sort of walk into your range or your LOS. Making it just utilizing your downtime as much as possible is a common theme that a lot of coaches on YouTube talk about for Overwatch and a lot of other games. But information is value. Being able to formulate the best plans and the best strategies is value, but one of the most micro or based like aspects of Overwatch is being able to gather that information to form your plans consistently. This understanding when to use your tab, when to get the information, maximizing your downtime to get the information to form the best plans that you can, is going to be one of the reasons why somebody can be an amazingly like brilliant person about the game. They can understand all of the theory, how everything like should work, and be able to break down every pro game ever, but they're stuck in like diamond or gold or plat or whatever because they're not able to get the information that they need to utilize their knowledge in game. Actually implementing ways and methods to gather information and use your downtime efficiently so to build your consistency is going to be one of the most important parts of a player. And I can't give you an exact formula of what is downtime, at least right now. Maybe that's a fun topic to tackle. I might go into that. I have so many ideas flowing through my head today. But understanding or just having the thought of like, okay, do I need to do anything here? If I can't do anything here, or I'm waiting for something, then maybe I can start looking for more information. Is going to be a very, very useful skill that will help you climb ranks so much. And tab is going to be one of the main tools that you can implement in that downtime because it doesn't cost anything. You can spam it as much as you want. It's just like so much information that you can gather, with the only downside being that it limits your vision a little bit. But if you're hiding behind a corner or you're reloading anyways, then you're not going to be getting much value out of your vision anyways. So understanding when to use your tab effectively and maximizing it as much into your downtime as you can is going to be a very, very important thing. It doesn't necessarily have to be just tab. Tab is inefficient at a few things, which I'm going to get into in a second, but just making the most out of your downtime, even if that's just gathering information, is going to be one of the things that boosts your consistency as a player so much. So much. But tab can be while tab can be a very good tool to utilize your downtime, it's not the only tool. So just keep that in mind, but still think about how you want to be implementing tab and when you can be, and trying to find little opportunities that you can try to utilize that aspect of the game into your own ranked sessions. Succeeding in ranked is about finding more value than those in your lobbies consistently. Value comes in a trillion different forms, but executing good strategies is one of the proven consistent ways to find value. To ensure strategies you come up with in-game as a player are good and reliable, you need consistent information on what the actual state of your game is. Why I constantly say Overwatch is a micro-based game on this channel is because with how fast-paced the game is, even gathering the information that you need to make good strategies to have good macro is demanding on a micro level. Tiny optimization, searching for information when there is no physical value you can get in the game is one of the mechanical skills that is useful. Hell, it's needed as a player. You can have the greatest understanding of the game, knowing what the optimal play is while watching pro play or looking at replay codes, but unless you can form and execute those ideas properly in the game, they won't serve you to win games. With that all said and done, I hope that this video allows you guys to understand how to be using tab and finding information a little bit easier in your games to make your thought process a little bit more smooth. But with all of that out of the way, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow with another ranked lessons. Bye bye.